Hello everyone, my name is Sharky the Gaming Shark aka JDFRG, and in today's video I will be discussing the first part of Game Theory's Ultimate FNaF timeline and my reasons for disagreeing with some of the theories it presents. Now, before we begin, I want to clarify that this video is not intended to attack Game Theory or MatPat, but rather to present evidence that they might have missed. If you haven't seen their video yet, I suggest watching it first, as it may help with understanding some of the points made. Also, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, but remember to keep the conversation civil. But without further ado, let's get into the video. In their video, Game Theory presented the theory that Fredbear's singing show was a 1930s roadside attraction that William Afton saw as a child, which later inspired him to create Fredbear's Family Diner. The main issue I have with this theory is that if we assume that William was born around 1930, which gives him enough time to be old enough to remember seeing the show, then he would be around 53 during the FNaF 4 minigames and 57 in FNaF 2. While this itself isn't necessarily lore-breaking, the problem arises if we were to assume that Henry is of a similar age. That would make him around 93 years old during FNaF 6, which contradicts how his voice sounds in his speech, and is in general unlikely. One popular theory in the FNaF community, which is also presented in Game Theory's video, is that William Afton and Henry Emily founded Fredbear's Family Diner. However, there is no real in-game proof to support this theory. The only supporting facts for it are that both William and Henry at one point in the timeline ran a company, Afton Robotics and Fredbear Entertainment respectively. Personally, I don't see William as being the creator of Fredbear, since in most of his appearances that are connected to Fredbear Entertainment or Fredbears, more specifically in the FNaF 4 minigames and the FNaF 2 phone calls, he is seen as a simple employee working at the location. Now, for the few following points, I have found some pretty strong evidence that disproves parts of Game Theory's theory. They theorize that Henry Emily created his own restaurant named Chica's Party World after seeing the success of Fredbear's. Now, to prove why I think that Chica's Party World could not have existed back then, we need to look at where the name is first mentioned. The name Chica's Party World is taken from a source code of a sister location teaser, where they are marked as being a client of Circus Baby Entertainment and Rental. Based on that, we can at least conclude that Chica's Party World existed at the same time as the sister location, but that itself doesn't debunk the theory. Now, what does is one of the lines mentioned by the hand unit, where he states that sister location takes place after the closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
The problem is that according to Game Theory's proposed timeline, there haven't been any Freddy's location before their claimed time when Chica's Party World was founded. Now, you might be thinking that what if Chica's Party World just existed before sister location, which would make it possible for it to be from the same time as Fredbear's. But according to Game Theory's proposed timeline, Chica's Party World could not have existed at the same time as Fredbear's Family Diner, due to their theory that Fredbear's Family Diner was a merger of the Fredbear's location and Chica's Party World. Continuing with the previous point, Game Theory theorizes that the animatronics that performed in Chica's Party World were the Mediocre Melodies and Chica the Chicken. As proof, they bring up the fact that the Mediocre Melodies use a simpler design, such as car batteries as energy sources, and that according to another theory of theirs, the Mediocre Melodies have features that are common to animatronics built by Henry. The main problem with the theory is the time gap between these events and FNaF 6. If the Mediocre Melodies existed around 1979, the time period where Game Theory places Chica's Party World, then the Mediocre Melodies would be around 44 years old in Pizzeria Simulator, which takes place on or after the year 2023. That is a problem, as we have seen animatronics before that have deteriorated way more during a short period, notably the withered animatronics, which got to the level of deterioration that they are in FNaF 2 in less than 10 years, while the Mediocre Melodies appear in pristine condition in FNaF 6. Game theory also tries to support this theory with the fact that Mediocre Melodies have merged. The two pieces of evidence they provide are the kids appearing in FNaF 3 Happiest Day that are wearing masks that resemble the Melodies, and the Mr. Hippo Magnet in Security Breach. My problems are that, firstly, there is one mask in the Happiest Day that does not fit with any of the Mediocre Melodies, and secondly, the Mr. Hippo Magnet was likely made way later in the timeline, as I doubt that the Pizzaplex would use magnets that were made over 40 years ago. The other problem comes from grouping Chica the Chicken with the Mediocre Melodies. If I understood the editor's note from Game Theory's video correctly, then that would mean that the unwithered version of Withered Chica was the animatronic that would have been performing at the party world. The problem is that Chica has multiple major design differences compared to the other Melodies, the main ones being that she doesn't use an external power supply, that she uses the Endo 2 compared to the Endo 1 like endoskeletons the Melodies use, and that her costume is made of fur unlike plastic used for the others. Game Theory states multiple times in the video that William Afton started out as a good person. However, I have my doubts about this claim. To me, it seems that Game Theory might be saying this to make their theory about Afton rebuilding his children later in the timeline seem more believable, despite the lack of evidence supporting it. In fact, the only minor evidence I could find seems to contradict their idea. In the games, William actively ignores crying bite victim child being bullied by Michael, and according to Game Theory's timeline, William later in the story actively torments his son Michael using the nightmare animatronics. One of the points mentioned by Game Theory in the video was that Nightmare animatronics and Golden Freddy are the only animatronics who have 5 fingers other than Glitchtrap. The reason why they brought this up is that one main part of the video was the fact that William Afton had another Fredbear's location before merging with Chica's Party World, which used costumes with 5 fingers instead of animatronics. They explained that the player in FNaF 4 sees the Nightmare animatronics having 5 fingers is because they have seen the costumes before. Regardless of whether the playable character is Michael Afton or the crying bite victim child, it is more likely that the player saw Springlock animatronics rather than the costumes, as unlike the costumes, they are actually depicted in the games, and would be way more connected to the reason why the player would experience the FNaF 4 gameplay in the first place. Another thing to consider is that the only non-animatronic costumes mentioned in the whole franchise are the temporary replacement suits mentioned in the FNaF 3 tape recordings, which were only taken into use after multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures.
After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures, the company has deemed the suit temporarily unfit for employees. Until replacements arrive, you will be expected to wear the temporary costumes provided to you.
That couldn't have happened in Game Theory's timeline yet, as they state that the Springlock suits were made only after the Fredbear's location merged with Chica's Party World. The other thing that was brought up was that Golden Freddy originally also had 5 fingers, for which Game Theory provided an image from the Silver Eye visual novel as proof. However, it is worth noting that the Golden Freddy suit pictured in the Silver Eyes novel appears to be a Springlock suit, which makes me question the connection between the suit and the costumes supposedly created by William Afton. One of the sources that were not used in the video, but according to Game Theory confirmed many of their theories, was the official Character Encyclopedia. The section that they used to prove it was on Nedbear's page, where it was mentioned that he looked like he was an imitation altered enough to avoid copyright issues. One issue with the way Game Theory presented it is that they left out the part where it was mentioned that he looked like an imitation of Freddy Fazbear, an animatronic that would not exist yet if we were to go by Game Theory's timeline. The other problem I have in general is the use of Character Encyclopedia as a source of information. The book has too many inconsistencies, such as listing characters in games they never appeared in, and omitting characters from games where they did appear in. And in general, the book rather describes what the animatronics look like, instead of what their lore significance could be. Another problem that is not necessarily connected to any one theory they presented is the way that Game Theory's Ultimate Timeline videos are formatted. Game Theory has chosen to tell the timeline in the story format, often talking through the perspective of a character. The reason why this is a problem is that to be able to tell a story that way, some information will just not be mentioned, as it would not be logical for the character to know that, or some info will be made up so that the different points in the timeline would connect better. The era talked about in this video, that being the era covering the founding of Fredbear's Family Diner and the time preceding it, is a good example of what I mean, as it really doesn't have any information about it, so a lot of the stuff mentioned in Game Theory's video is just speculation with no real basis. If you have gotten this far, then a huge thank you for watching my video. As someone who doesn't typically create content like this, I really appreciate your support. I also want to give a shout out to Recovery Blaze and CMAYK for reviewing my script. Be sure to check out their channels in the description below. If you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I will try to read and reply to each and every one. Well, ChatGPT told me to ask you to like the video and subscribe instead of telling you to give this video a dislike if you didn't like it and not to subscribe if you don't want to. So yeah, I guess have a nice day and bye!